You ever had your dreams crushed by an HOA? Well, that's exactly what happened when they told me I couldn't have my fire pit in my own backyard. Yeah, the same backyard where I spent countless nights relaxing with friends and family around the fire. But instead of accepting defeat, I decided to take it to the next level. I wasn't going to just let them win. So, I came up with a plan, a big one. What if, instead of just a fire pit, I could throw a Marine Corps cookout that would blow the HOA's mind? I'm talking about a full-on event with a helicopter drop-in to kick it all off. Imagine that, a huge, noisy spectacle right in the middle of the neighborhood. But there was a problem. The HOA wasn't the only one I had to worry about. As the big day approached, tensions were building. Would the neighbors support me? Would I get a knock on the door from the HOA? And most importantly, how could I make this cookout epic without it turning into a disaster? Stay tuned, because what happens next is something you definitely won't want to miss. The idea came to me one evening as I was sitting outside, staring at the empty space where my fire pit used to be. It was a tough pill to swallow. One minute, I'm grilling with my buddies, enjoying some cold drinks, and the next, I'm slapped with a letter from the HOA. Fire hazards, they said. Noise complaints, they claimed. I mean, come on, who doesn't love a good BBQ and some laughter under the stars? But I wasn't going to let that be the end of it. This was more than just a fight about a fire pit. It felt like a battle for my backyard, my freedom, and honestly, my sanity. So I started brainstorming ways to turn the tables. A cookout? Sure. But it had to be something unforgettable, something that would make the HOA and everyone else take notice. And then I thought, what if I could get a helicopter involved? Yeah, I know it sounds crazy, but when you're pushed to the limit, you start thinking big. I knew I had a few Marine Corps friends who could help make it happen. The more I thought about it, the more I realized I could turn this into an event that no one in the neighborhood would ever forget. But I wasn't sure if the HOA would even let me pull it off. Would they come knocking before I could even fire up the grill? Would I be able to get it all together in time? The clock was ticking. As I began to map out the logistics of this outrageous idea, I could feel the pressure mounting. The more I thought about it, the more real it became. A helicopter. How was I even going to pull that off? Sure, I had the connections, but what about the cost? What if the HOA had already gotten wind of my plan and was waiting for the right moment to shut me down? I wasn't just breaking a rule. I was challenging the entire power dynamic in the neighborhood. The HOA president, Karen, was notoriously strict. Everyone in the neighborhood dreaded her. She had a way of making even the most harmless activities feel like serious infractions. I had heard whispers about her talking to neighbors behind closed doors, warning them to report any unusual behavior. It made me uneasy. What if she was already planning to sabotage my cookout before it even started? Then there was my next-door neighbor, Jeff. He was a cool guy, always up for a good time, but I wasn't sure how he'd feel about all the noise and chaos. His house was the closest to mine, and I had no doubt that a helicopter buzzing overhead wouldn't be his idea of a good time. On the other hand, he had always been a fan of military stuff, so maybe, just maybe, he'd be into the idea. But I couldn't help but wonder, would he be supportive, or would he call the HOA on me? And what about the neighbors across the street? The Johnsons were the type to mind their own business, but I knew they were the kind of people who wouldn't hesitate to report something that felt too out of line. The more I thought about it, the more I realized this cookout wasn't just about me versus the HOA. It was about how much I was willing to risk to make a statement. Could I really pull this off without turning the whole neighborhood against me? As the day of the cookout approached, my anxiety was at an all-time high. I had everything lined up, friends from the Marines ready to help, the helicopter on standby, and even the grill prepped for a legendary BBQ. But as the hours ticked away, the weight of what I was about to do kept sinking in. Every time I walked outside to check the weather or set up, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was about to go wrong. I'd already gotten a few glares from neighbors who seemed to sense that something unusual was brewing. Jeff, my next-door neighbor, had been acting a little distant lately. We'd always exchanged friendly waves, but now he seemed a little more reserved. Maybe he was worried about the noise or what the HOA would think. Every time I saw him, my stomach twisted in knots. But the real problem was Karen, the HOA president. Word on the street was that she had been driving around the neighborhood more than usual, clipboard in hand, checking for anything out of place. I couldn't help but think she had caught wind of my plan. What if she showed up unannounced and shut everything down before the helicopter even made its appearance? That would be the ultimate disaster. Then the day arrived. The helicopter was scheduled to drop in around noon, right at the peak of the event. I had the grill fired up, the music blasting, and the Marines were already making their rounds, ensuring everything was set. But as the time drew near, I noticed something strange. There was a car parked across the street that I hadn't seen before, and it wasn't just any car, it was Karen's. My heart raced. Was she spying on me? Had she already planned her next move? I couldn't afford to back down now, but everything felt like it was on the edge of collapsing. The countdown had begun, and I had no idea how it was all going to end. As the helicopter's scheduled drop-in time neared, the tension in my chest only grew. My eyes were glued to Karen's car, parked across the street, but then something unexpected happened. Just as I was preparing myself for her to march over, clipboard in hand, my phone buzzed in my pocket. It was a text from Jeff. *K, you good? I've got a weird feeling about today. *. I felt a sudden chill run down my spine. What did he mean? Was he getting cold feet? Or worse, was he about to bail on me? The whole thing was feeling more unstable by the second. Before I could respond, I saw Karen step out of her car, her posture stiff, her eyes scanning the yard. I thought I'd seen the worst of it, but the next thing I saw made my heart skip a beat. She wasn't alone. Standing beside her was a man in a suit, holding a folder. My mind raced. Who was this guy? What had they planned? Was he some sort of lawyer, ready to shut me down with one swift move? I hadn't anticipated this at all. The stakes had just gotten much higher, and now, not only was I up against the HOA, but it looked like I was facing legal action as well. My mind raced through every possible scenario. Had I made a huge mistake by pushing too far? Was this cookout about to turn into a legal nightmare? But then, out of nowhere, the sound of helicopter blades slicing through the air cut through my thoughts. My heart pounded. The moment of truth had arrived, and the clock was ticking. Would I be able to go through with this before the HOA closed in on me? Or was it already too late? The crowd of guests was growing, the grill was ready, and the helicopter was in sight. But with Karen standing there, her mysterious companion, and Jeff's strange message, I couldn't help but feel like everything was spiraling out of control. The helicopter was getting closer, and my nerves were at their breaking point. I could feel the vibrations of the blades in my chest as the massive aircraft hovered above, ready for its drop. The crowd was buzzing with excitement, everyone eager for the show, but there was still that sinking feeling in my gut. Karen, standing there with her companion, wasn't going anywhere. They were watching, waiting for any excuse to ruin everything. Just as I took a deep breath, preparing myself for what came next, the unexpected happened. Karen's companion stepped forward, holding out a piece of paper to me. My mind raced as I took it, expecting the worst, a legal notice or some sort of cease and desist order. But as I unfolded the paper, the words on it threw me completely off guard. It wasn't a lawsuit, it was a waiver. The man in the suit was actually a lawyer hired by the HOA to ensure the event went smoothly without any legal issues. Apparently, the HOA had decided to approve the cookout under one condition. I had to sign a liability waiver, acknowledging that I was responsible for any damages or accidents that might occur. But here's the kicker. It came with a surprise twist. As I scanned the paper, I realized that the waiver wasn't just about the fire pit or the helicopter. It also included a special clause. The HOA had secretly arranged for a police presence during the event, but it wasn't to shut me down. It was to give the event a sense of legitimacy. Karen had been playing her hand the whole time, letting me think she was out to sabotage everything when, in fact, she had been working behind the scenes to make it happen in a legal way. Confused but relieved, I signed a waiver and gave a quick nod to Karen and her lawyer. The helicopter's doors opened, and with a thundering roar, a massive crate of food and supplies was lowered onto the lawn, just as planned. The crowd erupted into cheers. We were pulling it off, but as I stood there, feeling like I had won, I turned to see Jeff approaching with a somber look on his face. He paused before speaking, his voice low. "Hey, about that text. I wasn't trying to back out. I just thought you should know. Karen's been planning to make this a yearly event for the neighborhood. She's already thinking about next year's drop." For a moment, everything stopped. I thought I had outsmarted the HOA, but it turned out I had played right into their hands. The cookout was a success, but the game was far from over. As Jeff's words sank in, I realized the whole event had taken an unexpected turn. The cookout had been everything I wanted and more, but now it felt like I was tangled in a much bigger game. Karen, with her behind-the-scenes planning, wasn't just trying to shut me down, she was creating a spectacle, one that would be part of the HOA's future plans. Suddenly, it felt like the fire pit was just the beginning of something much more complicated. But in that moment, surrounded by laughter, good food, and the hum of helicopters above, I couldn't help but smile. It wasn't about winning against the HOA anymore. It was about making a stand and doing something that shook up the neighborhood. The crowd, the Marines, and even Jeff, who had his own doubts, were all part of this wild ride. The fire pit wasn't just a symbol of rebellion. It was a reminder that sometimes you have to push boundaries to make life more interesting. As the sun set and the last of the food was served, I realized something important. Sometimes you have to play the game by their rules, even if it means bending them a little. The HOA thought they could control everything, but in the end, they'd inadvertently turned this cookout into an event for the whole neighborhood to remember. And as I looked around, I knew one thing for sure: next year's cookout, it was going to be even bigger.